I'm constantly looking for a way that I can differentiate myself and not just say I have great service, I have great rates, I'm available all the time. Like I want to be able to show tangible ways that I can help you.
What's going on, guys? This is another episode of the Mortgage Pro podcast. I'm your host, Eric Braun. This podcast is for mortgage professionals, by mortgage professionals, to make better mortgage professionals. I just want to thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, follow, listen, comment, whatever, all of that good stuff. But today's special guest is Brandon Goldberg. We go into a lot of gems. I mean, this is one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far. So I want to thank Brandon for coming on because the value that he brought is priceless. We talked about, the times changing and honing in your value proposition and understanding how to differentiate yourself in this very crowded space. We talked about how to get more offers accepted. He went into, he touched on his strategy when presenting offers to make sure that his clients' offers are being differentiated. We went into how his team is structured, just a bunch of valuable information. So I hope you guys enjoy. Today's special guest is Brandon Goldberg. Brandon, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I'm thankful to be here, and by here I mean in San Diego. I don't know how you're doing with smoke out there.
The smoke is not great. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but my voice is a little screwed up. My throat's hurting. It's better today, but yesterday it was really, really bad. I actually live in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn was the number one polluted area in the world yesterday anyway. So I don't think that was good for me, my health, and I'm feeling it. But anyway, so yeah, for everybody who doesn't know who you are, I want to just take a little bit to find out about you, maybe talk about how you got in the business, your market, what your production looks like, just to give everybody some context.
Yeah. So I got in the business back in 2009, actually, and it was kind of out of necessity. I was working retail and they had me like training the managers. And at one point I was like, hey man, like, when am I going to be the manager? You got me training all these people. And he said,
Right.
well, if we took you off the floor, it's like losing 3 people. And I was like, God, I got to get a job. So my father actually said, well, why don't you work for me? And I said, I'd rather die. And I went to work as a personal banker at Wells Fargo. That was the worst job I think I've ever had. I lasted 1 quarter and I told them I can't stand these sales tactics. I got to get out of here. And so I gave it a chance. And, it was a lot of backup lending for builders back then because people had foreclosures, short sales and stuff. And it was about finding a way to save a sale because a lot of people couldn't qualify. And it's just kind of been a wild ride. We ended up, working as a preferred lender now. So in recent times, it's been kind of crazy production. We've helped over 200 families a year, and more recently, not so much, just because it's gone crazy, like out here. And I'm sure it's kind of the same as you, when rates came down, everybody bought a house. They sold out. We were working 9 communities. Right. And then like kind of as it was trickling down, it was like, okay, I better find a way to get some more business. So I started, kind of going down the traditional route, looking for realtors, financial planners, that sort of thing. And I am still on the board of YGen at the Building Industry Association. So I still do that. And we still work with the builder and multiple builders, but that's kind of the gist of it.
That's so you got in the business at a let's say funky time, right? And now it is another funky time. And so tell me a little bit about like you're starting off your first maybe year or two in the business. Like, how'd you get your feet wet? What opportunities did you go after? Was it hard? Was it easy?
So it was, a weird time. What's cool about weird times like this is that there's always winners regardless of the market, right? So back then, being like, he used to say, we were the brain surgeons and we charged like it. Like back then, it wasn't so limited in what you could charge, but these people weren't getting approved elsewhere. It was like, nobody else was able to help them get a home. So we didn't have to do a whole lot of volume to be profitable and do well. So back then it was, I don't know if you guys do this. We used to have the home buyers club. That was people that didn't qualify. Like we couldn't even qualify them. So like half the day I would spend just literally going through green folders, hanging folders, taking out the files like on both sides, you have the two prongs, and literally just calling people to say, hey, it's been a while, wanted to see if anything's changed, if there's a way. I hated it. It's like, I can't stand calling people out of the blue. I don't like when people call me out of the blue. So I really didn't like it. So when we started getting more and more business, and it was more like inbound calls, like, can you help me? Right. That was when I really started to enjoy it. And you get a chance to really like be creative. And it's like, okay, if 4, 5, 6, 7 people told this guy they can't get a house and I can do it, like these people love you, they send you gifts, and they, literally heartwarming texts or phone calls and stuff like that almost, kind of, it's really heartfelt. So that was when I really started to enjoy it more.
I always said like the best way to get started in this business is telemarketing in some way or some shape or form, and also working really tough deals. Because if you can get through telemarketing, you can learn a lot of skills, right? You can run into a lot of different scenarios. And then if you close a few of those tough deals, they're almost like, building blocks, right? I got that one done, and then I got another one done, and I got another one done. And then all of a sudden you're like, I can close any deal. I did that one 2 years ago and that one 6 years ago. Do you remember that file? We're always constantly bringing up files in the office. Like, you remember, the Johnson file or whatever it is. And they're all little experiences that build on top of each other. So, and then when you kind of shift into the more referral, sustainable inbound business, let's just call it, you can be the hero, and it's a huge value proposition for those potential referral partners. So speak to that a little bit, because I know a lot of people want to go from point A to point Z, right, immediately in this business. And everybody getting started understands, like, if I can just get some referral partners and people who send me business, and I can build relationships, I won't have to pound the phone anymore, right? Speak to like the new LO that like how do you get your foot in the door with new referral relationships? And then I want to talk about the builders specifically, because that's super interesting for me as well.
Yeah, so it's kind of one and the same, right? So we used to go out on, like, I think it was Thursdays, and we would literally go everywhere. I don't know how well you know California, but basically Oxnard to Chula Vista, which is like, I don't know, 300-mile radius. And we would just go to every single builder. I used to call it, we're chasing flags. Like, the new construction always has their flags out. Wow. And we would just go in and say, this is what we do. We've got these kind of programs, knowing that that's kind of the problems they're running into, telling people, about extenuating circumstances and that sort of thing. And it's just a matter of right timing, right? They're like, oh, I actually just had somebody I lost, and I could, you could maybe save this sale. And you get that opportunity. And I was exactly what you were saying. When we were closing these deals that were really tough, I was like, what the hell, man? Like, if we could do these ones, we could do all their loans. Why don't they send us everything? I want it all, Right. And it just took years and years of backup lending and getting, the really tough ones. And eventually it became like, okay, we were doing, I felt like, more than half the deals that the preferred lender was, we were doing about the same that the preferred lender was at the time. And they just had, fortunately gave us the opportunity. And that's a big part. Erwin's my father. So Erwin, had built a relationship previously. And again, like, life is serendipitous. We just so happen, we'll argue about that forever. I think I said we should go to San Diego. He says it was his idea, but we just ran into this old connection that gave us an opportunity. And then it's just all about taking care of people. And if you do the right thing and you do a good job, especially when you're working with real business people, then they appreciate that, trust you, and you continue to get business, and you just have to continue to do a really good job and care.
Yeah. So, and I don't want anybody to miss what Brandon just said, especially the newer LOs. He said years and years, right? Years and years of chasing flags. Like it wasn't, he sat down, had one coffee appointment, and then his whole business blew up. And I think that's what people are looking for. And it drives me nuts because they all they see is Brandon doing well now, Brandon working with builders now, myself working with, a good chunk of the realtors in my market now, right? That does not happen overnight, right? And a lot of the times it's earned with blood, sweat, and tears with those tough deals. And then they start to trust you. And then it's like, somebody in their office refers you to them and says, you got to use Eric. And now it's just this ripple effect, but it takes years. It takes years. And then also something that you just said that a lot of people don't understand as well is once you get them, it's about keeping them. And a lot of loan officers can't do that, right? So speak to that a little bit more. Like you are working with business people, like you said, like it's my equivalent of working with a top realtor team or a top realtor. They know what they're doing. They don't want to hear the fluff. They don't care about the bells and whistles a lot of the time. They just want shit done, right? So speak to that a little bit more. Like how are you maintaining these builder relationships? And what's like you spoke to like their pain points and what they're going through. Like speak about that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's everything, right? The number one thing is you got to take care of people. My goal, whenever I have an opportunity that somebody, like, I don't take that lightly. If somebody gives me an opportunity to help a client, it is my goal to elevate the experience so much so that they want to tell their friends and family, so that I can return the favor and get future business for them, or get a perfect survey score that's going to help them get more business. With the builder, it's changing times. Like you said, it matters what's needed at the time. If rates are super high and you got to talk about temporary buy down programs or permanent buy downs, if it's qualifying reasons, like it's always just being creative and staying in touch with what's going on in the market so that you can offer. Like yesterday, I literally put together like a little video presentation that just shows like, hey, if you bought a house at 400,000 and you want to move to a house that's 800,000, I can show you a way to do that. And your payment's only going to move like $500. You want to do that?
Right.
Because a lot of people just see high prices, high interest rates and say, oh God, man, I can't afford a house, or I'm not going to get rid of this 2-3% rate. Like it's crazy.
Right.
So it's about showing people, how you do things and how it's going to be beneficial to them. And it all kind of just works its own way out then, I think, from there.
The timing is so key. Like you have to understand what the pain points of today's market is, right? When COVID first happened, for instance, real estate was deemed non-essential in New York. So you couldn't do open houses. You couldn't show houses. So immediately overnight, I was shook. I was scared. I was like, first of all, not only can you not show houses, right? The rates, I don't know if you remember this, they were 6% at 9 a.m. and then they were like 3% at 11 a.m. And then you can go on to bank rate and people were advertising 12% interest rates for like 30 minutes and then automatic. Like it was insane those first few weeks because nobody knew what the hell was going to happen. But anyway, so real estate was deemed non-essential and you couldn't show houses. So I could have either taken a step back, gotten my pity party or threw my pity party and said, you know what, I'm just going to wait for the phone to ring. I'm going to whatever. But instead I was like, let's create. And I've always thought of my customer as the realtor, right? Yes, my customers are my customers as well. And I got to do a good job for them. But as far as my marketing stuff goes and strategy, it's always like realtor centric, right? So what are the realtors' pain points right now. They can't show houses,
Yeah.
right? Everybody's sitting at home. People are collecting unemployment because they're like, I can't sell houses, right? So instead of sitting down and throwing that pity party, like I said, I was like, let me create a series of videos and give realtors actionable strategy that they can do right now to build their business from home. So we named the series Producer Plateau. And till this day, I've built relationships from that video series that still refer me business, number one. And number two, I felt like it was a big impact on my brand. And we did, I think it was like 6 videos or something like that. Everything from, mindset to how to do a virtual buyer consultation, how to do virtual showings. I brought on guests and I was just like, let me just focus on, if the pain point is this, how do I deliver value to that pain point? And it's now it's different. Now it's like inventory is tight. So how do we communicate to our referral partners our value of our offer process? And I know you are doing the same thing. And that's actually one of the things that we connected over offline is you have a pretty built out offer process to make sure that your client's offer sticks out and sets itself apart. So why don't you speak to that a little bit? I'm very, very curious on like A to Z. Give me the rundown, like take the floor.
Yeah. So first off, that's one thing that somebody told me that stuck with me a lot is if the phone is ringing, you better pick it up. And if the phone is not ringing, you better pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can't sit around and wait for it to ring because it's not going to happen. But as far as the offer process goes, it's exactly that, right? Like right now, it's so tough because the people that were able to sit around and just catch a bunch of refis, they're back out in the market. The people that were in the market already that are trying to get to these realtors and say, give me a chance and whatever, they're there too. So it's really saturated. So right now it's all about differentiating yourself. And I'm sure just based on, you focusing on offers, right? When there is such little inventory, we're seeing 10, 15 offers, way over asking, wave appraisals, wave, inspections, whatever. And so for me, it was just like, I'm constantly looking for a way that I can differentiate myself and not just say I have great service, I have great rates, I'm available all the time. Like I want to be able to show tangible ways that I can help you. And if like right now, if I'm a listing agent and I'm getting, 10 lenders that are calling me and saying, hey, my file's so great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to show them, first off, they're not going to pick up my phone call because I'm just like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So then right after, I'm sending them a text that's got a picture of the house that they're selling on it. And it says right there in the title, fully underwritten offer for X address. And then you open that up and there's a video presentation where I'm telling you all the strengths of this file. And if there's an opportunity, not every file has this, but if there's an opportunity, I'll show them a strategy where we can cover an appraisal gap and keep the cash to close and the monthly payment around the same way, because that's a way that I think, provided they click play on the video,
Right.
that I can, stand out a little bit and give them comfort knowing like the only cheesy thing I do is this, like I call it forget the financing, right? And I want a listing agent to feel that way, like, hey, there's nothing to worry about with this deal. If this guy's sending me a fully approved pre-approval, then I know it's going to close and it's going to close on time because I'm also providing them in that same video. There's additional pieces on the right as far as like who I am, video about the team, all that sort of thing. And it's just all about instilling confidence in the realtor that's selling the house. And, ideally you get them on the phone so you can have a conversation and say, hey, what's important to the seller? And you can kind of cater to that. But at the end of the day, like they don't know me from Jack. Right. I mean, sometimes they do, and that's very helpful, but right. A lot of times they don't. And it's like, you got to show them why they should trust you and build that trust like now, because otherwise somebody else's offer is going to get accepted. And that's the way I can help realtors. Whether they always want that help or not is a different case, but that's kind of how it goes.
And when did you start implementing the video part?
Just recently, man. I never had a fear of being on a camera at all because it doesn't, like, as far as I'm concerned, we're next to each other. I'm just chatting with you, right? So it doesn't matter to me that if there's a camera or not. but I just didn't want to be the guy taking videos of myself, like, hey, look at me, look what I do. I don't like to brag. I don't want to seem like that guy that's like, hey, go with me, I'm the best, like whatever. So I didn't want to get on video and talk about business. I just barely got into social business wise recently. And the reason I did that, part of it was honestly, I saw your stuff. I think you must have landed on my Explore page because all I look at is mortgage and real estate stuff. So I kind of saw what you were doing. You're a young, like, there's a lot of similarities between you and I was like, okay, this is something I have to do.
Right.
And then also, like, I just have friends that are buying houses and not using me. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And they're like, dude, I didn't know you did that.
Right. Right.
So it was like, I had to get into video. And then there's just platforms out there. Like I said, I'm constantly looking for an opportunity to differentiate myself. So if there's a platform that I can use, and everything right now is kind of leaning toward video. So to maximize your use of these platforms, you got to implement video.
Right.
But it's been recent, like literally, I don't know, 4 or 5 months.
How are the results?
So it really varies, sometimes you don't even get a reply, and like, people, like I said, if they don't know
They
you,
got an offer that's $100,000 above yours, and it doesn't matter what you say or what you do or how handsome you are. It's just doesn't matter. Yeah.
Right. But at other times I've had people that say, hey, you know what, I really appreciate what you did here. And, this is the situation, or like, hey, this is where the top offer is, and this is where you'd have to come in at to make it work. So it does make a difference from time to time. And also I've had people give me business that didn't know me before, but they want that same experience for their clients when they're submitting an offer. So they give you an opportunity. So it's paid off for me. And, this is part of me being like most people and wanting instant gratification. I just have to give it time to basically be seen and to pay off. It just, everything takes time.
And it's funny because we're constantly, I like how you said you're constantly looking for ways to differentiate yourself. Like the offer call, right, where a loan officer calls the listing agent might not be enough anymore because you're not the only one, right? 3 years ago, you were the only one calling because nobody really thought of doing that. We've been doing that before the tight market because it was a good way to build a relationship with the listing agent, right? And naturally, I worked with a lot of newer agents. So a lot of times I have more experience than the buyer's agent. And I was able to kind of put together offer strategies for them, like I was representing, like I was negotiating, basically. So I was just going above and beyond. And then it just became a necessity when the inventory got tight. And now it's like, okay, that's like, of course you do that, right? My other LO does that, right? Everybody does it now. So now, like Brandon, it's like, how do we just crank it up a notch, right? Is it what we say during the call? Is it any other information that we can deliver, such as, hey, if the house under appraises, we're still good to go. This is how. Just it's all about disarming those potential objections, right? And understanding your audience. That's really what it's all about. And that's going to change as the market changes. The pain points are going to change as the market changes. So now the one thing that comes to mind when anybody brings up a strategy that's just, I'm not going to say it takes a ton of your time, right? But even social media, for instance, to use a more general topic, like people look at my stuff and they're like, how do you do that and do loans? And there's a strategy. Trust me, I'm not shooting content every day. It's a lot of work, but I have a system, right, in place where I'm still in the trenches, guys. Our tag phrase for this podcast is, for mortgage professionals by mortgage professionals to make better mortgage professionals. So I'm still very much in the trenches. I don't want you guys to think I'm just creating mortgage content. Like I have to make a call after this to talk a client off the ledge. Like I'm still very active. But a lot of the times you hear some of this stuff and you're like, I have to do that, but how do I have the time? So first, how much time does it really take to put together that video and present that offer and stuff like that?
Yeah. So first, I don't want to not at least give them some shine because it is a great platform. It's Lender Launchpad, and they've got a good community too. So they're always coming up with ideas. So it's not just me. I'm like, I'll take, believe me, I will steal anything from people that works, you know? Um, but so yeah, if anybody's interested in that, that's cool. But sorry, I sidetracked myself. Just remind me one more time what it is.
So like, how much time does it take you to put that video presentation together?
Yeah, so I mean, the platform's really good. That's why I mentioned that first. So it makes it pretty easy to duplicate a thing, change a picture up front. I take longer than probably most people because I don't use Mortgage Coach. Mortgage Coach is integrated in there. I prefer to do like a YouTube video where I can explain it. I make my own grids. I can do the closing costs more exact, and I just do it that way. So it takes me longer.
Right.
But to me, if it takes me an extra 10 minutes to do something, and it's going to be the difference between somebody getting an offer accepted or not, or the difference between me, impressing a client enough that when they shop rate, and if I'm an eighth or higher, they say, well, this guy's not providing me with all this information that Brandon did, then it's worth an extra 10. I don't care if it's 30 minutes. Like, this is a difference in somebody's life. Somebody, for the most part, if they're going to put an offer in a house, they love that house, right? So if it takes me 10, 20, 30 minutes to help somebody get what they really want and love, like, hey, you're kind of changing people's lives, and it's worth an extra few minutes, like whatever. I wake up a little earlier, I go to bed a little later.
Right. I mean, and nobody gets paid to do pre-approvals. So, and just like, realtors don't get paid to do showings either. So like, I always tell my referral partners, I'm like, I want to spend a good chunk of my day helping you get accepted offers, because nobody gets paid to do all the work before, right? We gotta get this thing to the closing table, and without a house, there is no loan, and without a loan, there is no house. So we gotta make sure that we're getting the client what they want. They don't want the mortgage. So I completely agree with that mindset. Now, what's another thing when it comes to time management that my mind always goes to, and as people who've watched or listened to previous episodes, my favorite part of the mortgage business is like, there's so many different ways to build it, right? So tell me a little bit about like, do you have a team? Are you solo? Do you have an assistant? Do you have a processor? Like, what's your team structure? Because that always fascinates me.
Yeah, so I feel like Erwin is pretty much, sales. He helps me by dealing with higher level stuff that's time consuming so that I have time to do things like this. We've got a loan officer assistant, production partner, whatever you want to call him. She's super hands-on, and she's been in the business since 97. So she betters the team, and we've got a processor that's great, and everybody else in the process, you got closers and funders and everybody that's involved. But our team has really shrunk, just because the volume is down right now, which is heartbreaking too. You don't want to lose team members. They become family to you, and it's people's livelihoods, and I take that seriously. But that's pretty much the extent of the team as of right now.
So LOA, processor, and then of course, like, so do you plug into like corporates, like funders and stuff like that? And okay. And now, like, give me your quick rundown of your file flow. Like, are you taking an intake call, like initial calls with the client? Is the LOA or production partner doing that? Then what happens next? Then when you get a contract, what happens? Give me a quick rundown of your file flow.
Yeah, so I've got a life of the loan that we follow. Erwin helped put it together. I think it's like 98 cells, like down of different steps. So I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but pretty much like an app comes in or somebody texts me or calls me and says that this person is, I'm referring this person to you, or the intro text, whatever. I call them right away, answer their questions, kind of explain how the process goes. If they choose to take the next steps, either I'll take the loan app over the phone, or if they don't have the time right then, I'll have them do an application. As soon as I get that, I'm pretty much calling to do the initial intake call. That's usually like a 30, 45-minute call just to get to know what their goals are and what they're trying to accomplish, what's important to them. And Also get to know them as people. Like, hey, do you have pets that are moving with you? Are how old are your kids? What are their names? What are they into? And that's information that I take and make a getting to know you form. And that's something I provide to the referral partners so they can use that for conversation and gift giving if they want, like finding out what coffee shop they go to, whatever. And then from there, Jen really takes over. She handles all like the doc chasing, if you will. She does a lot of the actual pre-approvals, running DU, all that sort of stuff. If there's an issue, obviously we collaborate and figure out, okay, how can we make this work? But for the most part, she handles that, and our processor takes over once they're in escrow. And all that I'm helping with from there on is when people are calling with questions, emailing with questions, putting together those presentations, a rate lock presentation that goes over all their lock options, months to recuperate, et cetera. And once their rate's unlocked, man, I'm like done. I'm just waiting for them to get the keys.
Right.
So that's kind of like the main things that I do. And then a ton of my time is spent, I'm sure the same way yours is, like working on the business. How can I improve these systems, processes that I have so that the experience is even better, that there's more value for the referral partners, that it's going to lead to more referrals. Like it's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And then, there's out in the public too, like you're out there too at events and, at the Association of Realtors, being on boards and stuff like that. It is a lot of networking too. So that's pretty much the parts that I handle.
So what do you think? You work like 5 hours a week or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm off right now.
No, it's always, I heard something the other day, like you can work in your business, on your business, or above your business. And I've always heard the in or on, but I've never heard above. And that person that said that, like when they talk about above your business, that's like the branding, the the stuff that's gonna pay dividends years down the line. So it's a constant battle of those three things. As far as my time goes, some days I'm in the thick of it. I just brought on a new loan coordinator or LOA or production partner, whatever you want to call it. And so a lot of my week right now has just been training her, letting her know what the systems are, getting her onboarded, which is always a pain in the ass because I got to get her email set up. I got to get her CRM set up. I got to get her connected with our app, her Encompass hierarchy and what loans she can see and her notifications. And just I've made a whole list. I was like, I've done this way too many times with either LOs, processors, or LOAs. I'm like, I need to make a list of like the stuff that needs to get done like the first day, and we need to systemize this. So, but it's always a battle. And if I could spend all of my time working on and above my business, that would be ideal. But I do think in this business, it's very, very, very difficult to be completely hands off. Yes, we're not as important as we think, but we are pretty important. So I very early on like fell into the lie of like gurus, and I'm not talking about in the mortgage industry. I'm just talking about business gurus in general, where it's like delegate, hands off, let everything, like that doesn't work. That doesn't work in this business. You can delegate a lot of stuff, and that's where LOs are constantly struggle. Like, what do I delegate? What do I not? But I'm always going to be, I always got to take calls. I can't pass that off. Not yet anyway.
Well, what do you do when a realtor calls you and asks a question about a file and you're like, I have no idea.
Right.
Talk to Jen, or let me talk to Jen, or let me, find out. It's like, dude, are you the loan officer on this deal or not? So like, I love that idea of, let everything go and delegate it to other people. But at the end of the day, like I have people calling me and asking me questions. And if I'm like aloof, just out, like trying to get business or, working on my branding or whatever it is, then I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm doing. And that's kind of my whole, like one of my value propositions is that you're dealing with somebody that knows what's going on, and you're not dealing with a huge team where you're not actually talking to the loan officer, you're talking to other people like that. That's part of it. So you've gotta
Right.
You've got to be in the thick of things. So you don't, I don't know about other people, but in my mind, like you've got to be a part of the business.
100%. And, every once in a while I get to do cool things like this and interview, Brandon Goldberg and take an hour out of my day to have some fun. So I just want to say thank you for coming on, because we went over a ton of valuable stuff, and I hope nobody missed it. You're obviously a shining example of what this industry can do, and I'm grateful for your time today. So I appreciate it.
I mean, really thankful that you're doing this and all that you put out. Honestly, it's seen, it's helpful to people. I don't just say that. I reached out to you randomly for a reason. Like there's people out in the business that are doing things that you're like, oh, this person is doing what I want to do. And so what you're putting out and sharing, it's exactly what you said when you said, like there's people's always trying to sell you something, or there's like an ulterior motive when like what you're doing is really helpful. And even just the first couple episodes you've had, I've taken a bunch of stuff away from it. So I'm thankful for you having me.
Cool. Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it, brother.